He opened the security app, expecting to catch her stealing. 8 caregivers before her had failed, stolen from him, leaked private information to tabloids, abandoned his daughter when the work got too hard. So when Marcus Chen saw his daughter's wheelchair sitting empty in the middle of the therapy room, his stomach dropped. Then he saw her, his paralyzed daughter standing, taking steps, walking toward the maid's outstretched arms with tears streaming down her small face, calling out a word that shattered Marcus's entire world. Mama. Marcus's phone slipped from his hand. His back hit the wall of his corner office 53 floors above San Francisco. And the man who'd built a $3 billion AI empire, the man who'd accepted impossible as final, watched it crumble on a screen in his own home. 3 years ago, Marcus Chen lost everything that mattered. His wife Elena died 6 hours after delivering their daughter, a blood clot no one saw coming, no warning, no goodbye, just a recovery room that went from laughter to chaos to silence in 14 minutes. Marcus held her hand until it went cold. Then nurses led him to the NICU to meet Sophie, 4 pounds, 2 ounces, premature, fragile, fighting for every breath. The doctors didn't wait long to deliver the second blow. Mr. Chen, the oxygen deprivation during delivery caused significant brain damage. Sophie has cerebral palsy, severe spastic diplegia affecting both legs. Marcus heard the words, but they didn't land. Not then. He was still seeing Elena's face, still hearing her last words. Promise me you'll take care of our baby girl. Will she walk? He'd asked. The neurologist's face said everything. Based on the MRI scans and the extent of the damage, walking is highly unlikely, possibly never. Weeks passed, then months. Sophie didn't improve, didn't hit milestones. She sat in a custom pediatric wheelchair, small body still, eyes distant, like she was looking at a world she couldn't quite reach. Marcus hired the best therapists money could buy, flew in specialists from Johns Hopkins, Mayo Clinic, purchased equipment that cost more than most people's homes. Standing frames, gait trainers, robotic exoskeletons designed for children. Nothing changed. Sophie didn't walk. She barely responded to the exercises. And Marcus, alone in his Pacific Heights mansion overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge, started to accept what the doctors said. His daughter would never stand, never run, never chase bubbles through the garden like Elena had dreamed about during pregnancy. He buried that hope right next to his wife. Then came the caregivers, 8 of them in 26 months. The first quit after 3 weeks. Said watching Sophie was too depressing. The second spent more time taking selfies in the mansion than doing therapy. Marcus fired her when he found her streaming video tours of his home to her Instagram followers. The third seemed perfect until Marcus discovered she'd sold Sophie's medical records to a tabloid for $4,000. The headline read, "Tech Titan's Tragic Secret. Daughter will never walk." After that, something broke inside him. One caregiver stole prescription medication. Another accessed his financial servers and attempted to transfer funds to an offshore account. Each one came with impeccable references and left with his trust bleeding out behind them. Marcus stopped seeing people. He saw security risks. He installed cameras in every room, every hallway, every corner of his daughter's world. Motion sensors, audio recording, live feeds to his phone, his laptop, his watch. He reviewed hours of footage every night, rewinding, zooming, looking for the lie, the angle, the betrayal he knew was coming. Control became his only protection. So when Isabella Rodriguez walked through his front door, 27 years old, quiet, composed, carrying a worn backpack and speaking with a slight accent, Marcus didn't see a person. He saw the 9th failure waiting to happen. No improvising, he told her, not looking up from her background check report. No bonding, no hope speeches. Follow the medical protocol exactly. The doctors have made their prognosis clear. Isabella nodded. I understand, Mr. Chen. But she didn't understand. Or maybe she understood too well, because Isabella didn't follow his rules. She sang to Sophie when no one was watching, soft Spanish lullabies her own mother had sung. She moved Sophie's legs in patterns the physical therapists never taught. She whispered words of encouragement like she believed Sophie could hear her, like she believed Sophie could become more than her diagnosis. And Marcus watched it all through his cameras. At first he watched to catch her making mistakes. Then he watched because he couldn't look away, because something was happening in that house, something small at first. Sophie smiled during Isabella's songs. Sophie's fingers twitched when Isabella played music. Sophie held her head up longer than she ever had before. Marcus told himself it meant nothing. He told himself hope was dangerous. He told himself the doctors knew best. But late at night, alone in his home office with the blue glow of monitors lighting his face, Marcus watched a woman fight for his daughter with nothing but patience and belief. And somewhere deep in his chest, in a place he thought had died with Elena, something started to crack. He didn't trust it. He couldn't, because hope, when you've buried it that deep, doesn't feel like relief. It feels like a trap. CTA number 1. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The mansion woke up the same way every morning, quiet. Not peaceful quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your chest. Marcus stood at the kitchen window, espresso growing cold in his hand, watching fog roll across the bay. His Tesla was already charged in the garage. His driver would arrive at 6:45, board meeting at 8 o'clock, product launch review at 10 o'clock, investor call at 2 o'clock. Behind him, down the long hallway that led to Sophie's wing, he heard the soft whir of a motorized wheelchair. The night nurse was moving her, probably to the therapy room. Sophie liked to sit by the window when the morning light came through. Just right. Marcus didn't turn around. He used to. In the beginning, right after they came home from the hospital, Marcus would rush to every sound, every cry, every small movement. He would sit beside her crib for hours, watching her tiny chest rise and fall, terrified that if he looked away, something would go wrong. Elena would have been better at this. She had wanted a child more than anything. 4 years of trying, 2 rounds of IVF, and when she finally got pregnant, she cried for an entire weekend. Happy tears, the kind that come when something you've wanted for so long finally becomes real. Marcus remembered the nursery she designed. Soft lavender walls, a mural of cherry blossoms she'd painted herself, a rocking chair by the window where she planned to read stories every night. That nursery sat empty now. Sophie slept in a medical bed in the therapy room. Adjustable frame, safety rails, monitors that tracked her breathing, her heart rate, her every movement. The lavender room with the cherry blossom mural had become storage for equipment they'd tried once and abandoned. Marcus set the espresso cup in the sink and walked toward his office. The hallway stretched long and dim. Family photos used to line these walls. Elena had insisted on it. Houses need memories, she'd say. Otherwise, they're just buildings. Marcus had taken them down 8 months after she died. He couldn't pass her smile 20 times a day. Couldn't see the hope in her eyes, the way she looked at him, like he could build anything, solve anything, protect them from everything. He'd failed her, failed their daughter, failed every promise he'd made in that hospital room when he held Elena's hand and told her he'd take care of Sophie. The frames left faint rectangles on the wallpaper, ghosts of a life that almost happened. Marcus pushed open his office door and sat at his desk. 6 monitors glowed on the wall, stock tickers, code repositories, security feeds. There she was, his daughter. Sophie sat in her pink wheelchair, staring at the bookshelf across the therapy room. Her small hands rested in her lap. Her legs, thin and still, were covered with a soft blanket decorated with butterflies, Elena's favorite. Isabella moved around the room, adjusting pillows, organizing toys. Her movements were careful, deliberate, like she understood that this space held something fragile. Marcus watched her hands. 8 caregivers, 8 failures, 8 reasons to believe she would be no different. But she'd been here 4 weeks now. No complaints, no shortcuts, no suspicious phone calls or unauthorized visitors. Just quiet consistency. That's what worried him most. Isabella had a routine. Every morning she arrived at exactly 7 o'clock a.m. She'd greet the night nurse, review Sophie's sleep charts, check medication logs. Then she'd spend the first 15 minutes just sitting with Sophie. Not talking, not doing therapy, just present. Marcus noticed this through the cameras. It bothered him at first. He was paying her $35 an hour to work, not to sit. But then he realized something. She wasn't sitting idle. She was watching, learning, studying the way Sophie's fingers curled when she was uncomfortable, the way her breathing changed when she needed repositioning, the way her eyes flickered when something caught her attention. She was learning his daughter in a way Marcus had stopped trying to. On her 5th morning, Isabella brought a small Bluetooth speaker into the therapy room. Nothing fancy, just a portable device she pulled from her backpack. She set it on the shelf and pressed play. Soft acoustic guitar filled the room, a woman's voice singing in Spanish. Marcus watched from his office, finger hovering over the intercom button. This wasn't in the protocol. Sophie had specific sound therapy sessions on Wednesdays, administered by a licensed music therapist. Random music wasn't part of the plan, but he didn't press the button. Because Sophie turned her head. It was small, just a few degrees to the right, but Marcus saw it clearly on the screen. His daughter, who spent most days staring at the same spot on the wall, turned toward the sound. Isabella noticed too. She didn't make a fuss, didn't clap or celebrate. She just smiled softly and adjusted the volume slightly higher. Sophie's fingers twitched against her armrest. Marcus leaned closer to the monitor. Isabella knelt beside Sophie's wheelchair, her movements slow and intentional. She didn't touch Sophie right away, just positioned herself in her line of sight and waited. "You like that, mija?" she asked quietly. "It's called Bésame Mucho. My abuela used to sing it to me when I couldn't sleep." Sophie didn't respond, but her fingers twitched again. Isabella reached out and placed her hand near Sophie's, not touching, just close enough that Sophie could feel her warmth if she wanted. She stayed like that for a long moment. Marcus's throat tightened. When was the last time he'd sat with his daughter like that? When was the last time he'd just been present, without an agenda, without checking monitors or reviewing therapy reports, or calculating how much the latest specialist consultation was costing? He couldn't remember. That afternoon, Marcus found himself walking toward the therapy room. He told himself he needed to check the equipment, make sure everything was properly maintained. But when he reached the door and heard Isabella's voice inside, he stopped. She was reading, not a medical manual or a therapy guidebook, a children's story, something about a little girl who wanted to touch the stars. "Everyone told her the stars are too far away," Isabella read, her voice gentle and clear. "You'll never reach them." But the little girl didn't listen. She climbed to the top of the highest mountain every single night, and every single night she reached up. Marcus peered through the crack in the door. Sophie sat in her wheelchair, positioned near Isabella, who sat cross-legged on the floor. The book lay open in Isabella's lap. Her eyes moved between the pages and Sophie's face, checking, connecting. "Did she ever touch the stars?" Isabella asked Sophie. "What do you think?" Silence. But Sophie's eyes were open, fixed on Isabella's mus's face. Andrew stepped back from the door. His chest felt strange, tight and loose at the same time. He walked back to his office without entering the room. That night, reviewing the footage, he watched Isabella read that story 3 more times. Watched the way she changed her voice for different characters. Watched the way she paused to let the words settle. Watched his daughter watch her. Something was shifting in that house. Marcus could feel it. He just didn't trust it yet. Marcus couldn't stop watching. Every night after the household went dark, he'd sit in his office with the glow of monitors painting shadows across his face. He told himself it was caution, responsibility, a father protecting his child from another betrayal. But that wasn't true anymore. He was watching because something was happening, something he didn't understand. Week 5. Isabella had stopped following the protocol entirely. It started small, the music, the stories, things he could dismiss as harmless additions. But then it grew. One evening, Marcus pulled up the afternoon footage and nearly dropped his phone. Isabella was on the floor with Sophie. She had Sophie's small legs in her hands and was moving them slowly, rhythmically. Left, right, like she was walking, like her muscles remembered something her brain had forgotten. Marcus's jaw clenched. This wasn't in any therapy plan. No specialist had prescribed this. She was improvising, breaking every rule he'd set. He reached for his phone to call her, fire her, end this before it went any further. But then Sophie laughed, not a big laugh, just a small sound, barely more than breath. But Marcus heard it through the speakers and his hand froze over the phone. His daughter was laughing. When was the last time he'd heard that sound? Marcus set the phone down. His hands were shaking. He kept watching. Isabella moved to a different exercise. She positioned a small stuffed bunny just beyond Sophie's reach, on the tray attached to her wheelchair, too far for her to grab without effort. "Come on, mija," she said softly. "You can do it. Just a little stretch." Sophie's arms stayed still. Isabella waited, patient, unhurried. "I know you can," she whispered. "I believe in you." Marcus watched the screen, holding his breath without realizing it. Sophie's fingers twitched. Her arm moved, slowly, painfully slowly. She reached forward, her small hand stretched toward the bunny. She touched it. Isabella's face broke into the widest smile. "Yes, look at you, look at what you just did." Sophie's fingers curled around the toy. Marcus's eyes burned. He rewound the footage, watched it again and again, that small arm reaching, those tiny fingers closing around fabric. Such a simple movement, something any other child would do without thinking. But his daughter had just done the impossible. Marcus rubbed his face with both hands. This was dangerous, all of it. Isabella was giving Sophie false hope, pushing her beyond what the doctors said she could do. When she failed, and she would fail, the disappointment would destroy them both. He should fire her tomorrow morning, first thing. But instead of drafting a termination letter, Marcus pulled up more footage. Days of it, weeks of it. He watched Isabella do leg exercises with Sophie every single morning. The same movements, the same rhythm. Patient, steady, never frustrated, never giving up. He watched her help Sophie bear weight on her feet for just seconds at a time. Sophie's small legs trembling, then holding, then trembling again. But each day she held a little longer. He watched her do arm exercises to music. Sophie's tiny limbs moving slowly at first, then smoother, more controlled. Marcus pulled up footage from the first week Isabella arrived. Sophie sat still in her wheelchair, vacant, distant, then footage from yesterday. Sophie reaching for toys. Sophie's foot tapping to music. Sophie holding her head steady, eyes tracking Isabella as she moved around the room. The difference was undeniable. Marcus's hands trembled on the keyboard. He opened a new browser window and typed neuroplasticity in children with cerebral palsy. Articles flooded the screen, medical journals, case studies, research papers from Stanford, Johns Hopkins, Harvard. He clicked the first one. Early intervention in pediatric cerebral palsy cases has shown remarkable results in neural pathway development. Repetitive motor pattern training can stimulate the brain to form new connections, bypassing damaged areas. He clicked another. The infant and toddler brain demonstrates extraordinary plasticity. With consistent, targeted intervention, children with CP have achieved mobility outcomes far exceeding initial prognosis. Marcus read until his eyes burned, until the words blurred together, until 3 in the morning crept past and the house sat silent around him. Everything Isabella had said, the neural pathways, the brain's ability to rewire itself, the importance of early intervention. It was all there, published, peer-reviewed, real, and he'd never looked. Not once in 3 years. He'd taken those first doctors at their word, accepted their verdict like a death sentence, stopped researching, stopped questioning, stopped hoping. Marcus closed the laptop and sat in darkness. His daughter was improving, actually improving, doing things those initial specialists said she'd never do. And he'd almost fired the woman responsible, twice. His stomach turned. For 3 years, he'd poured millions into maintaining Sophie's limitations. Expensive wheelchairs, medical equipment, nurses who kept her comfortable in her diagnosis. But he'd never once fought for something more. Isabella had been here five weeks, making $35 an hour, and she'd accomplished what his millions hadn't touched. Because she believed. And he'd stopped believing the day Elena died. The discovery happened on a Tuesday. Marcus was in a board meeting, 53 floors above the city, presenting Q2 projections to investors. His phone buzzed. Motion alert. Therapy room. He ignored it, continued his presentation. Revenue growth, market expansion, user acquisition metrics. His phone buzzed again and again. Marcus glanced down. Multiple motion alerts, all from the therapy room. Something cold moved through his chest. He excused himself, stepped out into the hallway, opened the security app. The image took a moment to register. Sophie's wheelchair sat against the wall, empty. Marcus's stomach dropped. His first thought was panic, emergency. Something happened. Then he saw them, center of the therapy room, hardwood floor gleaming in the afternoon light. Sophie, standing, his daughter, his paralyzed daughter, the girl doctors said would never stand, was upright, wobbly, shaking, but standing on her own 2 feet. Isabella knelt about 5 feet away, her arms stretched wide open, tears streamed down her face. Come on, baby, she whispered. Come to me. You can do it. 1 step. Marcus couldn't breathe. Sophie moved. Her small foot lifted from the ground, hovered, then landed again, an inch forward, a step. Marcus's hand flew to his mouth. Sophie went again, more cautious. Her legs trembled violently, but she moved. 1 foot, then the other. 2 steps. A sound escaped Marcus's throat, something between a gasp and a sob. 3 steps. 4. 5. Sophie reached Isabella's outstretched arms, and then, through the phone speaker, Marcus heard it. 1 word, clear, unmistakable. Mama. Sophie wrapped her small arms around Isabella's neck and said it again. Mama. Marcus's phone slipped from his fingers. It clattered against the marble floor, but he didn't hear it. His knees buckled. Marcus slid down the wall until he sat on the floor of the executive hallway. His legs wouldn't hold him. On the phone screen, face down but still playing, he could hear Isabella's voice. Oh, mija, oh, my sweet girl. Yes, I'm here, I'm here. Mama, Sophie said again, crying now, happy tears. Marcus sat on the floor of his own company's headquarters, unable to move. Tears poured down his face. His whole body shook. 3 years. 3 years of doctors saying never. 3 years of specialists confirming impossible. 3 years of accepting that his daughter would spend her life in a wheelchair. And there she was, standing, walking, calling another woman Mama, the woman who'd refused to believe what the world told her. Marcus pressed both hands against his face and wept. Not quiet tears, not controlled grief. This was something deeper, something breaking open inside him that had been locked away since the day Elena died. Every failure, every betrayal, every night spent watching screens instead of holding his daughter, the shame, the fear, the hope he'd buried so deep he forgot it existed. It all came flooding out in waves that shook his entire body. His daughter could walk, his daughter could walk, and he'd almost given up on her. Marcus didn't go back to the board meeting. He sat in that hallway for 20 minutes, phone face down beside him, while executives walked past pretending not to notice their CEO crying on the floor. When he finally stood, his legs felt hollow. He picked up his phone, walked to his office, closed the door. He pulled up the footage again, watched it from the beginning. Sophie standing, Sophie walking, Sophie saying mama to a woman who wasn't her mother. That last part hit him like a fist. Mama, not to him, not to her father who'd given her everything money could buy, to the maid, to a stranger who'd been in their lives for 5 weeks. Marcus rewound, watched Sophie's face as she fell into Isabella's arms. The pure joy, the trust, the love. When was the last time Sophie had looked at him like that? When was the last time he'd even tried to earn it? Something dark twisted in his chest. Not gratitude, not relief, jealousy. This woman, this stranger, had accomplished what he couldn't, had reached his daughter in ways he'd stopped trying to, had become mama while he remained the man who paid the bills and watched through cameras. Marcus closed the laptop. He told himself he was protecting Sophie, that Isabella had crossed a line, that encouraging this kind of attachment was unprofessional, dangerous, inappropriate. But the truth whispered underneath, you can't handle that someone else succeeded where you failed. Marcus came home at 4:00 p.m., 2 hours early. He found them in the garden. Sophie was standing, actually standing, between 2 parallel bars Isabella had somehow set up on the lawn, taking small steps, laughing. 5 more, mija. You can do 5 more. I can do 6, Sophie said, her voice bright, alive. Marcus stood at the doorway, watching his daughter speak in full sentences, watching her move, watching her be everything the doctors said she'd never be. And all he felt was anger. What's going on here? His voice came out harder than he intended. Isabella spun around. Mr. Chen, you're home early. I can see what you were doing. Marcus walked toward them. Sophie, go inside. I need to speak with Isabella. Sophie's face fell. But Daddy, I was going to show you. Inside, now. The joy drained from his daughter's face. Isabella helped her back into the wheelchair she didn't need anymore, and Sophie rolled toward the house, looking back with confusion and hurt in her eyes. When she was gone, Marcus turned to Isabella. This has to stop. Mr. Chen, I can explain. You've overstepped. Completely. His voice was cold, clinical. You're not a licensed physical therapist. You're not a medical professional. You have no right to be doing whatever this is. Isabella's face went pale. Sophie is making progress, real progress. The exercises I've been doing are unauthorized, unproven, dangerous. Marcus paced. You've encouraged her to form an inappropriate attachment to you. You've given her false hope about capabilities she doesn't have. False hope? Isabella's voice rose. She walked today. She spoke. She called you Mama. The words came out like an accusation. Silence. Isabella's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Chen, I never asked her to. But you allowed it. Encouraged it, probably. Marcus's hands shook. You're the help. You're not her mother. You're not her family. You're an employee who forgot her place. The words landed like slaps. Isabella stepped back, her face crumpling. I love her. I love Sophie like... That's the problem, Marcus cut her off. This isn't love. This is you playing savior, living out some fantasy where you rescue the poor disabled girl and become a hero. That's not fair. You're fired, effective immediately. Isabella's breath caught. No, please, don't do this. Pack your things. I'll have accounting send your final check. Mr. Chen, please. What Sophie needs is proper medical care from qualified professionals, not some maid with a savior complex. The cruelty in his own voice should have stopped him, should have made him realize what he was doing. But jealousy is a kind of madness, and Marcus was drowning in it. Isabella wiped her eyes, stood taller. You're not doing this because you think I'm unqualified. Excuse me? You're doing this because you can't handle that she loves me, that I reached her when you couldn't, that I didn't give up on her like you did. The truth of it hit him like a physical blow. Get out of my house! Isabella held his gaze for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. You're going to regret this, Mr. Chen, not because of me, because of what it will do to her. She walked past him toward the house. Marcus stood alone in the garden, his heart pounding, his hands shaking, knowing, even in that moment, that he'd just destroyed the best thing that had happened to his daughter since the day she was born. Sophie stopped talking that night. Not completely. She'd answer direct questions with one-word responses. But the bright, laughing girl who'd said, "I can do 6, was gone. She sat in her wheelchair, refused to stand even when the physical therapist came, and stared at the wall, just like before. Marcus tried to explain. Isabella had to go. "Sweetheart, but we'll find someone else, someone even better." Sophie didn't respond. She wasn't qualified to be doing the things she was doing. It wasn't safe. Nothing. "Sophie, please, talk to Daddy." His daughter turned her wheelchair around and rolled away from him. That night, Marcus heard crying coming from Sophie's room. He stood outside her door, listening. "I want Isabella," she sobbed. "I want my mama." Each word was a knife. 3 days passed. The house returned to cold silence. Sophie refused therapy, refused to practice standing, refused to speak more than necessary. Marcus hired a new caregiver, professional, credentialed, highly recommended. Sophie ignored her completely. On the 4th night, Marcus found Sophie's longtime nurse, Maria, who'd been with them since the beginning, in the hallway. She looked at him with something like disgust. "You want to know what you did?" Maria said quietly. "Maria, that girl taught Sophie to walk, to talk, to hope, and you threw her away like trash. It was complicated. It was jealousy." Maria's voice was hard. "I watched the footage too, Mr. Chen. I saw your face when Sophie called her mama, and I saw what you became." She walked away, leaving Marcus alone with the truth. Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat in his office at 2 a.m., reviewing footage from before Isabella was fired, watching Sophie laugh, watching her take steps, watching her call out mama with such pure joy. He'd destroyed that, not because Isabella was unqualified, not because what she was doing was dangerous, because his daughter had given someone else the love he'd stopped trying to earn. Marcus pulled up Isabella's personnel file. Her address was listed. A small apartment building in the Mission District, 45 minutes away. He grabbed his keys. The building was modest, old, paint peeling on the exterior. Marcus climbed 3 flights of narrow stairs and knocked on apartment 3C. A woman answered. Older, Isabella's mother, probably. "Yes? I'm looking for Isabella Rodriguez. I'm Marcus Chen, her former—" The woman's face hardened. "I know who you are. I need to speak with her, please. My daughter cried for 2 days because of you." The woman's voice was steel. "You humiliated her, accused her of terrible things, and now you show up here?" "Mrs. Rodriguez, please, I made a mistake." "You made a choice. You chose your pride over a little girl who loved her." She started to close the door. "Wait." Marcus put his hand against the doorframe. "Please, Sophie, my daughter. She's stopped talking, stopped trying. She's back to how she was before Isabella came. That's not my daughter's problem anymore. I know I don't deserve her forgiveness, but Sophie does." His voice broke. "Sophie deserves to have Isabella back." Mrs. Rodriguez studied his face. "Why should I believe you won't hurt my daughter again? Because I finally understand what I did, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it right." The door opened wider. Isabella stood behind her mother, eyes red from crying. "Isabella, don't!" Her voice was hard, hurt. "Don't come here and try to fix this with money or apologies." "I'm not trying to fix it, I'm trying to beg." Marcus's voice shook. "You were right about everything. I fired you because I was jealous, because you succeeded where I failed, because my daughter loved you and I couldn't handle it." Tears streamed down Isabella's face. "Sophie needs you," Marcus continued. "She's stopped walking, stopped talking. She asks for you every night. You told her I wasn't qualified, that I was dangerous. I lied to her and to myself." Marcus dropped to his knees right there in the hallway. "I'm not asking as your employer. I'm asking as a father who destroyed The only good thing that's happened since his wife died. Please, come back. Not for me, for her." Isabella looked at her mother, then back at Marcus. "If I come back," she said slowly, "things change. You don't get to hide behind cameras anymore. You have to actually show up. Be present. Be her father, not her supervisor. Anything. And I'm not the help. I'm family. That's the only way this works." Marcus nodded, tears falling. "Family." Isabella reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, a drawing, crayon on construction paper. She handed it to Marcus. It was Sophie's work. 3 stick figures holding hands, one in a wheelchair, one with long dark hair labeled Mama Isabella, one in a suit labeled Daddy. Above them, in careful 3-year-old letters, "My family." Marcus's hands shook as he held the drawing. "She made that the day before you fired me," Isabella said softly. "She wanted to show you at dinner." Something broke completely in Marcus's chest. "I'll come back," Isabella said, "but in 1 week, you have 7 days to prove to Sophie that you mean it, that you're actually going to change." "How?" "Figure it out." Marcus canceled everything. Board meetings, product launches, investor calls, all of it. For 7 days, he stayed home. He sat with Sophie at breakfast, read to her at night, tried to do the leg exercises Isabella had taught her, awkwardly, clumsily, but he tried. Sophie watched him with confusion, suspicion. "Why are you here?" she asked on day 3. "Because I should have been here all along." "Are you going to leave again?" The question destroyed him. "No, sweetheart, I'm staying." "You always say that." She was right. He'd said it before, after Elena died, after each failed caregiver, empty promises. "This time is different," Marcus said. "Why?" "Because I finally understand what I almost lost." On day 6, Sophie asked the question he'd been dreading. "Is Isabella coming back?" Marcus knelt beside her wheelchair. "Yes, tomorrow." Sophie's face transformed. "Really? Really, if you want her to." I do want her to." Sophie threw her small arms around his neck. "Daddy, thank you." She was hugging him. His daughter was actually hugging him. Marcus held her tight and let himself cry. Day 7, 7 a.m. The doorbell rang. Marcus opened it. Isabella stood there, backpack over her shoulder, eyes uncertain. Before Marcus could speak, he heard it, a sound he'd never forget. Fast footsteps, not wheels. Footsteps. Sophie appeared at the end of the hallway, standing, walking, practically running toward the door. "Mama!" Isabella dropped to her knees as Sophie crashed into her arms. Both of them crying, laughing, holding each other. "You came back," Sophie sobbed. "You didn't leave me." "I'm here, mija. I'm staying, I promise." Marcus watched from the doorway, tears streaming down his face. Not jealous anymore, grateful, because this woman had given his daughter everything he couldn't, hope, love, belief that impossible wasn't final, and now she was giving him a second chance to be the father Sophie deserved. 6 months later. Sophie walked everywhere now, no wheelchair, no assistance. She started preschool, made friends, brought home drawings of her family, Daddy, Mama Isabella, and herself. Marcus worked from home 3 days a week, had dinner with his family every night, learned that true wealth wasn't measured in billions. It was measured in morning giggles, in bedtime stories, in tiny hands reaching for his. Isabella became more than Sophie's caregiver. She became part of their family, officially, legally. Marcus had his lawyers draw up papers naming her Sophie's legal guardian, co-parent, the person who'd saved both their lives. One Sunday evening they sat in the garden, the place where everything had changed. Sophie played nearby, chasing butterflies. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly, "for not giving up on us." Isabella smiled. "You're worth fighting for, both of you." A butterfly landed on Sophie's outstretched hand. She gasped with delight. "Daddy, Mama, look!" They both looked, both smiled. And Marcus realized something Elena had tried to tell him years ago. Don't build their future, build their present. He finally understood. Miracles don't need permission. They just need someone brave enough to believe they're possible. And sometimes they come carrying hope in their hands, speaking Spanish lullabies, refusing to accept that impossible means forever. Sometimes they teach us that the greatest wealth isn't what we build. It's who we become when we finally stop hiding behind screens and show up for the people we love.